Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics, three film geeks discussing movies both new and old. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
This week, another Steve Jobs movie comes out, this one with a big pedigree. Vin Diesel is the last witch hunter. Religion comes to high school football in Woodlawn. And 80s cartoon Jem And The Holograms takes the leap to the big screen. We'll also review Nicole Kidman in Strangerland and older films Winter's Bone and Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. It was a disastrous opening weekend for Jem, but inspired by that film, we're going to present to you guys our top 5 80s or 90s cartoon shows that we'd like to see made into feature-length films. Be an interesting one.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about whether we want them to be an animated feature, a live-action feature. But first up, let's talk about Steve Jobs, and that's going to be with Justin.
Michael Fassbender plays the iconic individual, chronicling not always Jobs' most important contributions to technology, but rather his relationships with the likes of his former colleague Steve Wozniak, played by Seth Rogen, his former boss John Scully, played by Jeff Daniels, and most importantly, his daughter, played in her youth by Ripley Sobo, and when she's older by Perla Haney Jardine. Over the course of 3 legendary product launches, the film explores Jobs' narcissism, unexpected loyalty to his friends, and coming to terms with fatherhood. Listeners, as Dan put it rather aptly, we've been bombarded with Jobs movie after Jobs movie after Jobs movie, to the point that I'm kind of cringing whenever another one comes out, but only director Danny Boyle could actually get me excited about one. And while it's certainly not on par with the likes of 127 Hours, I gotta say, he gives it its own flavor and it works. He focuses not on the legacy or the cool gadgets, but rather the man himself and those relationships. And fortunately, what keeps this movie moving is Fassbender, who more than rises to the challenge for this film. His character arc is compelling, interesting, and for the most part, makes up for some of the weaker elements, which is where the film kind of falls short. The change of direction in contrast of so many other Jobs movies is bold, and I really do appreciate it. But it often comes off as, frankly, rather choppy, with me often making parallels to kind of Birdman, but about 8 times more frenetic. And because of that, some of the best components of this movie, such as a really, really good back and forth between Fassbender and Rogen near the third act, gets kind of underplayed at times. Fortunately, the ending does make up for it in spades. It's a really great emotional conclusion. I just wish it had more balance to get there. I leave Steve Jobs the B+.
All right, Joe, how about for you?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much with Justin on this one. I mean, the first thing you have to say is the movie does have this strong emotional power from some very good direction from a director that can do it. I mean, Slumdog Millionaire. It definitely knows how to bring out that human element and kind of bring this legendary man down to a more human level, but still keep the reasons why he was so legendary. And I think that the main reason for that is because Fassbender does a really good job playing this person who's complicated and not always likable, but you still want to see where his story's going. And I did find the interplay with a lot of those different people in his life to be interesting. And I don't know if you really mentioned too much of it, but Kate Winslet did a good job playing his assistant, who
That's true.
was basically like his closest friend.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she did a good job as well. And Seth Rogen gives a great performance here. Probably... I don't know if I want to say it's his best, because I don't think it's catered to what he's best at, but for him stepping out of something that's not really comedic at all, he did a very good job, I would say.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like that little fraction we see of his dramatic chops in 50-50, but amp it up about threefold.
Exactly, like with 50-50, he was doing more dramatic work, but he was still playing a very...
He was still the comic relief of the movie.
Comic relief of the movie.
Yeah.
This one is just not really any comedy at all, which was good. I thought he did a good job with that, and Jeff Daniels was good as well. I do agree. I wish they had a little more focus on certain points and it was more fluid, because they go to different segments, and then sometimes there's bigger time jumps. Like they go from, I think it's the next release in 88 to 98. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, you were going 4 years, then you went 10 years, and then you got to basically leave the film at 98, which is big, but he did do a lot after that too. Mm-hmm. In fact, he became much more popular in the next decade or so. So I think exploring that might have been good. I did think it was being a little manipulative to some extent, trying to, I don't know, kind of redeem this man when I felt like it wasn't 100% fleshed out. But they did resolve the character development he had with his daughter, which was the most important part. I don't know. At some points, I guess that Sorkin dialogue was just a little too fast-paced. I had a hard time following all the details. So I thought it could have slowed down a little bit. But On the whole, though, I thought it was well directed, edited, and shot, and the performances were enough to make it pretty successful. I leave it with an A-.
Well, yeah, there's certainly great performances here, accepting Kate Winslet's slipping in and out of accent. I thought she did a good job on the whole, and in fact, for the first few minutes, I didn't even realize that was her. Mm-hmm. She turned a couple of phrases that I was like, oh, okay, that's Kate Winslet. But her accent was terrible. Other than that, though, she gave a good performance. Seth Rogen's great in this movie. He's only in really a small handful of scenes.
Important ones, though.
Important ones, certainly. But I honestly thought this was really an underwhelmer from Boyle.
Oh, wow.
To be honest. This one, he directs more like Sorkin directed. You know, you don't see a lot of the things we're used to seeing from Danny Boyle. You see a lot of things we're used to seeing from Aaron Sorkin. Mm-hmm. I thought the daughter story was completely shoehorned in, and just as I started to care, like Joe mentioned, the film advances 10 years, fills us in on everything that's been happening with Apple and the business side of Steve Jobs, but doesn't mention the daughter at all, or what she's been up to, or how their relationship has progressed.
That was odd.
In that 10 years. I didn't like that. When she does resurface, this really forced climax scene with her
a little forced.
Has the adult Lisa screaming at him, and then literally after a few lines from Steve Jobs, everything wraps up neatly with a bow. Oh, okay, Dad, I love you.
That was a big thing.
Made no sense. Yeah. I didn't like that. The Sorkin walk and talk dialogue is good. I do always enjoy that. But much of this movie is people yelling at each other. And I just didn't care. The worst scene of the movie for me was sort of in the middle. Daniels and Fassbender heatedly argue about who fired who and how the media spun it. That read to me as two billionaires having a pissing contest, and I just didn't care. Now, I will say, Justin hit it. The only really good argument scene comes at the end with Rogen and Fassbender. I thought that was great. And as such, the end of the movie does bring it up for me until Lisa resurfaces again. So for me, Steve Jobs gets a B-.
Oh, wow.
Really just a hair above the Ashton Kutcher Jobs.
Wow. So no love.
Well, some love, but certainly not.
Wow.
People with this kind of a pedigree. I mean, I love Danny Boyle. Mm-hmm. This just, for me, was a miss from him.
Okay. No, it's definitely not up with his best, but... And I can't speak to The Beach, which is widely considered his worst, but...
I like The Beach.
Oh, he did The Beach?
He did do The Beach.
Well, the ones I've seen are typically the good ones. 127, Slumdog, Millions, and 28 Days Later. Oh, and Trance.
Nobody really talks about The Beach, I guess, with Danny Boyle.
I didn't realize they did it.
Unless there's Beach fans, which there are.
Typically, they talk about how it was Leo's big
and
stumble after Titanic.
It's true.
It's a very pretty movie.
I guess.
To be fair... In the film's defense, I don't think you can really do a Jobs movie without it eventually having one point of two fairly rich gentlemen screaming at each other. It's Jobs.
I guess.
He's self-made, though.
I sort of... Yeah, he is. Which
is something.
I mean, they barely touch on.
True.
You know, and I know you didn't see the Kutcher version.
No.
Justin, did you ever end up seeing it?
I think I saw like a couple minutes of it, but other than that,
okay,
no.
So that's a no.
No.
They really dive in. I mean, it's a much more different take on it.
Yeah.
Similar man, obviously, but they go more from the drawing board and conception, and they end a little bit later than this one at the launch of the first iPod.
Oh. Well,
so maybe like 2002 or 3.
But at least they covered more time.
A little bit, yeah.
Did they
certainly on each end they covered more time.
How much did they touch on the personal stuff in that one?
Not much. You know, the daughter, not much at all. It was a lot more between him and Wozniak.
Okay.
Which in that film was played by Josh Gad, who we all like.
Yeah.
I guess I would have preferred the Kutcher Jobs movie, but with Fassbender and directed by Danny Boyle and written by Sorkin, because I enjoyed the subject matter of that more and the flow of that more. Then I do think Fassbender did a great job as Steve.
I mean, to be fair, I think that's the one thing everybody agrees on. It's great, pretty much because of that performance.
Yeah. But Daniels does a good job, too.
No, everybody does a good job.
Unfortunately, he's
kind of typecast.
Well, he's sort of like a caricature. I mean, I like the scene where he shows up at the end.
I thought... I didn't see him as a caricature. I thought that he was making a good point based on his perspective of things. Because they do show you the other side, like, he didn't really want to do it. He felt he had to, and he admitted he was wrong. Because he didn't have faith in the product. He was unsure. And I do think, this is kind of one of the big points of the movie, I do think that regardless of how things ended up, his treatment of the Apple II team, I think, was ridiculous.
Yes.
And I do think he should have acknowledged it.
It certainly is.
I mean, it was, and I think that explained his arrogance pretty well. He should have admitted that. And also, they never, I don't know if he ever acknowledged in public because he didn't in the film, and they don't give you a little, after what happened.
Right.
So,
No.
Which is weird.
Which is really weird. I didn't
That was a little odd.
Didn't like that. Like, okay, so can we talk a little about whatever? Like, he was a great guy, did this stuff. He never acknowledged the Apple II team. Wozniak, said he was best friends to the end. Whatever.
Right,
like,
right.
But it was. I thought it was a little incomplete. But I guess I think I liked the performances, and I did think it had this grandiose atmosphere. I just wish it had been a little bit less choppy as well.
Mm-hmm.
There were components of it, though, that I felt were Boyle-esque. The cinematography, for one thing. There was this great scene in a kind of like tunnel-like setting that sort of like reflects the media. Mm-hmm. I thought that was sort of Boyle-esque, and some of the cuts, obviously, is use of triptych, as made famous in 127 Hours. Mm-hmm. Is it very much him in its entirety? No, but there's moments. But there is honestly no escaping the choppy nature of it. And I will agree with you, Dan. The main conflict between Fassbender and Daniels in that scene is probably the weakest moment in the movie.
Yeah.
I'd say not necessarily because it's two guys screaming at each other, though. I'd say because for some reason they keep wanting to rely on jumping back and forth between past and present.
That was really annoying.
It was really weird.
I kept getting whiplash from it, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, it was never made clear, really, whose perspective those flashbacks were from.
This is true,
was
too.
Was it from Daniels? Was it from Fassbender's? We don't know.
I thought it was just being shown that way, the way it was, like for the audience. I don't think it was from anyone's perspective.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
Because they didn't really show you from their perspective.
You're right.
But they were doing it sort of like Family Guy, where like one of them was introducing the lead into the jump cut, so you would expect that. But
they would start with the cut.
I'm sorry, Dan.
This is about the only comparison to Family Guy and Steve Jobs I think we'll hear. So bravo, bravo! You've done
At
something
least it's
new.
coherent, right?
Yes. All right. Well, let's move on here. We've got The Last Witch Hunter. Joe.
The Last Witch Hunter is an American supernatural action film directed by Breck Eisner. The film stars Vin Diesel as an immortal witch hunter who must stop a plague from ravaging New York City with the resurrection of the Witch Queen. Now, one thing I was happy about when I saw this movie was I thought that, just based on the trailers, Vin Diesel was going to play this really stoic, lifeless character. And I was like, please, God, don't do that. Thankfully, he does kind of amp up the charm. He kind of is a character that has fun with things, and that's... So it wasn't the worst Diesel performance I've seen. He does okay here. And I think the world is potentially really interesting. And what I think ironically is the best parts of the movie for me were actually when it did a kind of the mystery element, building things up. I thought it was okay. The problem is that whenever it tries to be supernatural and go into the action, I mean, the effects are all right. And I thought the Witch Queen looked cool as an antagonist. But the thing is, Vin Diesel's character is so powerful that there's really no suspense. And... really, the fact that he's immortal and the fact that he can pretty much defeat all these people pretty much instantly is a problem. And there's a twist in there, but I thought it was pretty predictable. It also does drag at points. Still, I was engaged kind of with the world, and I did like the character. I just wish the world had been more expanded upon. And I think the big problem with it is the female character. Because if you... Now, no offense to her, I mean, I know she's the Jon Snow girl, but if you cut out her subplot, I know that she has to be there for plot purposes... You could have used that time with her to just expand on the world and make things more interesting. And I realized I could see it clearly forcing this female element in. It wasn't really romance, thankfully, but it wasn't. But forcing that in really drags down any of the interesting stuff in the movie because it's got a cool world. It's got something, but we never get a chance to develop it because we got to save her, find out what she does. She's a dream walker or whatever, and it's like you don't really need her, and it's just frustrating. For me, it was pretty average. I leave it with the C.
Okay. Well, in this one, Diesel proved to me once again that his niche belongs in Fast and Furious movies or doing voice work. And honestly, that's about it. His tonally low voice is so hard to understand sometimes that even the most basic plot point gets confusing because I didn't know what he was talking about. I think the CGI is terrible in this movie. I think it's very invasive. It reminded me a lot of certain movies, we reviewed at the beginning of last year, like Pompeii. It just didn't jive with me. I felt like if anybody lesser than Diesel were in the lead role, that this would be an easy direct-to-DVD affair.
You know what? I was thinking to myself, if Diesel was in the movie, I probably wouldn't like it as much.
Exactly. And I agree with you. I don't know what Michael Caine's doing in this movie, honestly.
Michael Caine.
I don't think Michael Caine is either.
Come on, like, this is Alfie we're talking about, and Alfred.
He does. I think he does pretty good with it.
He does fine with it, but why did he agree to do this?
Because he's lonely after Batman.
He is.
He needs
bored,
somebody to help.
Like. This movie, at the very least, could have been a guilty pleasure, much like Diesel's Triple X. But it takes itself way too seriously for that to happen. Mm-hmm. I agree, the twist you can see a mile away, and he is ultra powerful. That's something I didn't think about, but
he's too powerful.
Right. He's way too powerful. So where's the tension?
Well, there's actually an anime series I like to make fun of that made fun of. It's called Fairy Tail, where the main character, every time he gets into a fight with a bad guy, he hits him and destroys him in one punch. That's basically
That's
like
kind
Diesel.
of what happens in
and
this
so I'm
movie.
like, so we're not. So we know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Through it all, I can't say I was bored with it, but I really can't find much good about it. So I'm going to leave Last Witch Hunter with a D. Justin?
So what does it say about Diesel that his most complicated character, and quite possibly his entire acting career, was a giant robot?
Oh.
The Last Witch Hunter basically feels like Diesel started a D&D campaign and someone just took notes and decided, let's make a movie out of it.
To be fair, he does like D&D.
That
so
is what...
He does.
That's probably what he was thinking.
Isn't this whole movie based on his D&D character? That's what I read.
No, he's an orc in D&D typically.
Oh, okay.
But, well, it's, I don't know, maybe that's one reason I liked it, because I could think of this as... This is like, my one friend...
Yeah, you guys both play D&D.
But
that's true.
I don't know, Troll that we hang out sometimes. This is generally what his games are. Campaigns like these without the time skips.
But aside from being numbers, it's stale, it's annoying, the CGI is atrocious.
Thank you. Joe didn't like when I said that. He gave me a look.
No, sorry.
Joe, it's really terrible.
I mean, you guys say that, but I've seen far worse.
Oh, I said hi, but it is not a good... It is some of the worst CGI I've seen all year.
I don't know. I will...
It's about on par with Pompeii.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will admit that the CGI overall isn't the best looking, but there were some visual components I liked. Like, there's a couple scenes with, what is it, a crabapple tree I liked. There's the butterflies I liked. Some color against this dark palette movie. And I also liked the Witch Queen. I thought she looked good, to be honest.
The Witch Queen looked all right. Butterflies, I'm sick of. We just did that in Crimson Peak, and I was annoyed with it there. What's with the butterflies?
They
all
were
of a sudden?
moths, actually, sir.
Oh, is that right?
And they ate the butterflies if you didn't get it. Because, because they're better. Because they're darker and
I
evil.
see.
Get it? Huh?
No.
Huh?
Metaphor.
Metaphors. Go ahead.
I mean, probably the biggest offender of this movie that could have made it at least like a C+ or a B-. It's not fun. It's so wildly serious that it's borderline painful to watch
Take
at
yourself
times.
way too seriously.
The straight up villains get more or less one-shotted, and
It's true.
we're just left wondering where's the tension. Even leading to a supposed attempt at a sequel with quite possibly the world's most anticlimactic ending I've seen all year. The Last Witch Hunter gets a very, very easy D-.
Ooh, no F, though.
No F?
No F.
Why?
Because, like I said, I feel like there is some guilty pleasure, like B-movie kind of fun
But
that
not for
could have
you,
been
though.
salvaged here. It just didn't happen.
But they didn't do that.
So
They didn't.
So I don't know. You can't really give it points based on something that it could have done, but doesn't.
I mean, you could tell that they were trying to pull that off. They just weren't succeeding at all.
I think you guys are partially right. The movie's plot is pretty dark and does take itself pretty seriously, which I'm fine with. The thing is, though, Diesel doesn't. His character's having fun with the role for the most part. So I think that part's a
I'm
little
not entirely sure with that.
the whole beginning where he's laughing about witches, and for somebody that's dark and tortured as he's supposed to be, he's making jokes with Alfred. I mean, come on.
Alfred.
I mean, that's what he's doing. I was fine with that.
Call it what it is.
That's
man.
actually, in all honesty, if he had been as dead serious as the rest of the movie, I wouldn't have liked it as much. So I think you guys might have missed out on that.
I thought he was pretty serious.
Well, it was
Or
sort
at
of.
least trying to be.
Not really.
It was like his character in Riddick. It's like he's having fun with it, but he's also taking it deadly seriously because he's so overly attached to it.
I mean, I guess I would compare him in seriousness to certain other roles. And I mean, he has a lot of fun with Dom Toretto. He has a lot of fun with Triple X Guy. Riddick, I've only seen the last movie, which I didn't really care for. But I thought this was him trying to be a bit more serious and less hammy and let's have fun. But you didn't think so.
Have either of you guys seen A Man Apart?
No.
No.
I've seen Diesel serious. So trust me, this is no.
Okay.
No, not
Okay, I didn't say it was icy Diesel serious. I just said it was serious.
Well, yes, he's playing a serious character who gets serious in serious moments, like a lot of action heroes do. I mean, Tony Stark is a good example. Can be serious when he needs to, but is cracking jokes most of the time. Is he as funny and balanced as that? No, but I think that's more what he was going for.
All right, well, that definitely missed the mark for me. I did not get that sense from him. Of course, I couldn't understand him half the time, so who knows what.
To be fair,
he might have been doing one-liners. Who knows?
To be fair,
Was he on par with Bridges?
No. Well, it's a different... I mean, Bridges has a garble. This is just a low, guttural... Yeah.
I will say this, though. It is there, and that was difficult to understand, but he only did that when he was being serious. You could hear all his jokiness clearly.
I suppose that's true. I guess that's true.
Yeah.
All right, well, not a great movie. Up next is Woodlawn. This is based on the true story of Alabama football player and future coach Tony Nathan, played by Caleb Castile. Woodlawn takes place at an Alabama high school in 1973, right after it gets desegregated. Obviously, tensions are high all over town, and Coach Tandy Geraldus, played by Nick Bishop, tries to ease the racial tension within his team, but fails until a Christian speaker named Hank, played by Sean Astin, inspires the entire team to follow Jesus, and it flows over to the school and the whole town.
Before you start, I just want to ask, you haven't seen the movie, but Justin, how many times do you think people need to remake Remember the Titans? Because there's only one Remember the Titans. There's ever only going to be one. Just stop doing it. But
there can be only one.
But just continue.
But what if Rudy is the one who tells them about Jesus? Then it combines two football movies into one.
And then you never need to see another football movie ever again, basically.
In this film, John Voight and C. Thomas Howell have supporting roles. Woodlawn does come from the bane of Justin's existence, Pure Flix, who brought us God's Not Dead and Do You Believe, which typically get mixed results for me, but the reason Woodlawn works better than those isn't just because it's based on true events, though that does give it some authenticity, especially with it being in this era in American history. There's high turmoil, a lot of people turning to religion to help them cope, but Woodlawn strikes a good balance between the religion storyline and the sports angle, and adding the real factor just sort of adds to it. You know, what athletes don't thank God in their interviews. It's sort of a staple. So it makes sense. And though the performances aren't amazing, most of them are passable. As the movie continues, the scales do tip a bit too much towards the religion, and I absolutely hated the ending shot telling us to go online or call the number if we want to get involved with the next wave. That was really ridiculous.
Was that part of the movie?
It was before the credits rolled, yeah.
Wow.
So it was like the final part before the credits rolled. If that wasn't there, I actually would have graded this even higher, but I'll give Woodlawn a B-. Justin?
Wow.
As Joe aptly put it on his channel, I am the, quote, harsh critic, but in reality, I don't ask for much. Give me a decent story, some legitimate acting, and look like there was someone genuinely took some time putting it together, and I'm happy. By this logic, I should be willing to forgive much of Woodlawn's shortcomings. They definitely tried to hit the time period, tried to emphasize a big issue in diversity, but where did they hit the pavement? Some of the absolute worst sports cinematography I have ever seen on film. There are so many pointless scenes of slow-mo, getting people in the way of action shots. It's abysmal.
But don't you know, slow motion makes things look cool, right?
By virtue of Zack Snyder.
And I was thinking No Escape myself.
And I couldn't agree with you more, Dan. A super heavy-handed message at the end. I'll agree with you to some extent. I feel like it's balanced for, I'd say, the first half. Yeah. The acting certainly doesn't make up for it, and the weird and interesting choices of overacting for, let's put it in most PC terms, interesting townsfolk.
All right.
to highlight their future opponents. Like I said, I should be able to forgive most of these, but the big flaws stick out tremendously. I leave Woodlawn with a C-.
Hey, that's about an A- for a Christian movie from Justin.
It's not bad.
So I will accept that. Because listen, one of your tenements is that it needs to have legitimate actors, and you got to admit, I mean, Sean Astin, John Voight,
pretty legitimate.
C. Thomas Howell, he gets around sometimes. He was in The Outsiders in Gettysburg. He's a name, kind of.
Yeah, people know him.
Now the lead kid is very new. I thought he did okay.
No, he was one of the better aspects of it.
Yeah, I would say the worst acting probably comes from the coach.
Agreed. Alarmingly agreed.
Who also is sort of like a no-name. And I don't even know if I said his name right, but Jon Voight shows up about halfway through.
Sounds
I
good.
wish he had more to do, to be honest with you.
I do too, but his character didn't really... I don't know that his character was even that necessary at all.
Probably not, to be honest with
they
you.
just kind of wanted a big name, so they said, "Oh, Voight, do you want to play this guy?"
I'm not doing anything.
Yeah,
Pretty
I'm not
much.
doing anything right now. But clearly, Aston, I didn't realize quite how religious he was, because he was in Mom's Night Out last year, and
Do you believe this year? And
oh, that's right, and he was in Do You Believe as well.
Yeah, he's
So
big.
this is kind of his thing,
Well,
which is,
look,
I just never knew.
if you've got that Lord of the Rings money, you can do what you want, I guess.
Well, yeah, you can do Last Witch Hunter if you're Elijah Wood, or you could do Woodlawn.
Literally, Elijah Wood is proof that you don't care.
He just does whatever he
Like,
wants,
if
and they're all terrible.
But you know what? He doesn't care. He can take a risk and be completely fine.
yeah,
No one's ever going to be like, oh, well, Elijah Wood sucks. Well, maybe, but he was Frodo, so he's set for life. No one can question that.
You're right on that. I mean, look.
Michael Caine, same thing. Who's going to question me?
To briefly go back to The Last Witch Hunter, I mean, you got girl from Game of Thrones, you
Yeah.
got the boy from The Hobbit, you've got the guy from Fast and Furious,
And then you've got the other
Michael
guy.
Caine. I mean,
as Batman's Butler.
none of these people really
need.
care, or,
So
I feel like a lot of the things, with these Christian movies, Woodlawn, being obviously the latest example, you do see a lot of, like, maybe not A-listers, obviously, but people whose names you recognize. But, yeah, I thought this one was definitely a little more balanced than some.
oh, by far.
But it certainly, like, does kind of skew pretty hard towards the end.
Well, I guess I had to stick it somewhere, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's realistic. That's, this is what happened. And how did the end grab you, though, Justin? With the calling of the number.
I didn't like it.
I'll be honest, whenever a movie does that, it cannot get any higher than a C for me.
The one that sticks out to me in memory is the horror movie.
Oh.
The Devil, what was it
The
called?
Devil Inside.
The Devil Inside, which was like hovering about a D or a D plus, Joe. And then the end scene, right before the credits come up, it says something. They were pretending like it was a real thing or whatever, like Blair Witch.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, for more information about, the whatever event, go on this website and do the thing. I'm not doing homework for a movie. I'm sorry. So I failed it after that.
Wow.
Yeah, this movie probably would have been a B, but that last scene, I just had to knock it down a little bit. Joe, let's hear about Jem and the Holograms.
The good ones.
One of the more disastrous openings, about on par with We Are Your Friends.
Well,
1.3 million.
I was alone with Justin in the theater, so
I was alone in my theater, and I saw it on Saturday night.
Oh, no.
So what does that tell you?
Well, Jem and the Holograms is an American musical fantasy drama based on the Twilight and 1980s animated TV show of the same name. It was directed by John Chu, who is the Step Up guy, apparently.
Step Up 2.
Step Up 2 guy.
And future installments, yeah.
And other
Pretty much,
installments.
yeah.
And written by Ryan Lendls. There's this singer, Jerrica Benton, played by Aubrey Peoples, and her sister Kimbra and her friends, who are aspiring musicians and embark on a quest to become superstars, and that's really all it's about. Now, you can throw in a common fall from grace breakup of the band, a very generic forced romance, and a super tacked on sci-fi element that really shouldn't be there at all. That's really it. There is some commentary on stardom and being idolized, and there's some okay acting and some decent songs, I guess. But about half the movie is completely pointless fluff, and the rest is barely a plot held together by contrivances, basically her father, who seemed to know everything that was going to happen in the movie. Plus, I don't really know anything about the cartoon, but I can tell you that this has nothing to do with the cartoon, which is pretty horrible for any fan of the series. So I know that's pretty bad. And I'll say the last scene, which has the gall to hint at a sequel, is the only major callback to the show, and the most interesting part of the movie with actors that I actually knew, which was even more frustrating. I mean, I'll give it a few points for some interesting things, but most of this movie was just a chore and pretty lifeless. I leave it with a D.
Justin?
Well, this is yet another thrilling installment of generational childhood genocide.
Or Jem-icide in this case.
Or Jem-icide. Well, I love it. I love it. The original series, I watched a couple episodes to get myself ready for this, was filled with campy ridiculousness and was so wildly 80s it was almost sickening at times. But here's the thing, at least it was fun. This is such a lifeless and generic city girl becomes a star story and then realizes that stardom isn't all it's cracked up to be, with a hint of sci-fi to possibly make callbacks to the show. And it just feels like a side note. But the thing that really, really drove this grade down was the constant reliance of viral clips, not from people who are talking about the movie, but from fans of the cartoon who are manipulated to talking about how significant the cartoon is and hoping that you won't catch on.
That is actually pretty bad, and that is like half the fluff I was referring to. That was, if they had done that correctly, it might have been better. But literally, they must have lied to these people, because there's a couple scenes where they're obviously talking about the cartoon. Jem made me feel awesome because of this. So
they're wearing the shirts. You can see the cartoon in the background.
So that's obviously it. And for any fan of Jem, this is horrible. I think this is Michael Bay level. It's really
it's shameless.
It
is completely shameless.
Really bad.
I mean, the only reason this movie is escaping from a D- or an F is I did appreciate the last, 10, maybe 15 minutes where they talk a little bit about how do we define stardom. I thought that was a really interesting aspect. I wish it had been there earlier, and I wish there was some actual, tension.
Yeah.
But truly outrageous it ain't. I leave Jem and the Holograms with a D.
No, I do think it's truly outrageous that they made it.
Oh.
Because I don't understand why it exists. I don't know who thought it was a good idea and who they think the audience is for it. Now, unlike you gentlemen, I grew up with Jem. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't call myself a huge fan, but I used to watch it fairly regularly when I was, 10 or whatever. Mm-hmm. This thing has barely anything to do with the cartoon. So whatever cult fan base the show had is going to hate it. Tween girls won't understand why there's a robot in it, which I'm not really sure I do either, other than just to connect it loosely to the show. The songs, though, are good.
They're decent.
And probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
But ultimately fairly forgettable. I mean, I couldn't hum you one of them right now, but as it was on, I was enjoying
It's
them.
generic pop music.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Which, I don't typically mind.
Yeah.
I agree, there's some interesting commentary notes towards the end of the film, but I hated those random intercuts with the people talking about how Jem's music saved their lives when... You're right. That's not even what they were talking about.
It's pretty wrong.
It's a mess of a movie with zero tension, forgettable everything.
Oh, no.
I did like the music, though, and I thought the girl playing Jem did a good job. Juliette Lewis, I don't know what to say about her, because sometimes I really like her. In this, she was okay, but she wasn't given anything to do.
Pointless.
So I leave Jem and the Holograms with a D+. I find that they could have just made an update on Hannah Montana.
Pretty much.
Because that sort of tells the story better without the sci-fi element that girls watching this movie aren't going to understand why it exists.
Well, honestly, with superheroes being the thing now, just do a slightly updated version of the story, make it more superhero-based. Some more people would be interested.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
Well, that's true. Yeah, they were so going after the young girl audience. I mean, all the promotional stuff, kept saying, oh, it's from, a producer of Pitch Perfect and the director of the Justin Bieber movie. I mean, that was obviously their target. But first of all, these girls have never heard of Jem and the Holograms as a show. Well, it's not like it still runs on the regular, certain other 80s cartoons.
Right. Telling Justin that, you got the big four of the 80s cartoons. You've got He-Man, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, and Transformers. Jem's kind of like their little sister that nobody really talks about that much anymore.
I mean, I would throw the Smurfs in there. The Smurfs were incredibly popular.
I was trying to go
for the time.
More action-y,
okay, all right,
I guess.
That's fair.
You're right.
That's fair.
Smurfs would be up there too, but for that, I would say of the action block back then.
Okay, you're right. And to not even have the Misfits, which were their big rivals of the cartoon, in this movie, it would be like having a superhero movie with none of the villains. Joe complains that sometimes they go out of the gate with their biggest villain, but it would be like having none of the villains in the movie.
They make up some guy.
It would be like having the villain be like a the villain here is like the record company or
Basically.
It's like if Batman fought some evil Wayne company guy that wanted to take over. And it's like, oh, yeah,
yeah. Like
no one's gonna want to see that.
It makes no sense. It would be like if Iron Man, Pepper Potts was somehow the villain
Evil
of Iron
Pepper.
Man. It's like
Kind of funny.
that's just not how the story goes. So I don't understand. But I did think the music was fine. They used both original songs and current pop hits, and that was all fine. It was shot all right. I mean, the guy obviously knows how to attempt to captivate a 10-year-old girl. With the Justin Bieber movie, the Step Up movies. But what a mess. Pretty
messy.
Yeah. All right, let's move into our home media moment, and that is Strangerland. Justin?
The hum. That's what I'm going to call it. That's what we're calling it now, the hum.
All right, I'm fine with that.
Because we never know what we're going to get. It's like,
What is it? Is it another year? Ooh, it's Jim Broadbent bringing out.
That's right.
I did like that mystery.
That was
Best part of another year.
Great part of that movie.
Yeah.
Nicole Kidman and Joseph Fiennes play Matthew and Catherine Parker, an ordinary family living in the outback until their 2 teenage children disappear into the desert without a trace. As the investigation begins with the help of a local police officer, David Ray, played by Hugo Weaving, disturbing rumors start spreading about what goes on behind the doors of the Parker home. Somewhere between Prisoners and Gone Girl is the movie this was striving for. What we get is another thrilling example of art is holier than thou masquerading as a thriller. In truth, the film has its moments, when it actually wants to be a gritty character study, despite some fairly painful overacting at times, most notably from Nicole Kidman.
No.
And other scenes that can only be described as odd, to put it politely.
Yeah.
I leave Strangerland with a C-.
The other movie that this reminded me of, you're right on those other two, but I was thinking Captive, too.
Yeah.
The not the one we just recently reviewed, but the one
the
with
bad
Ryan
one.
Reynolds earlier this year.
Another similar one,
Yeah. All right, well, look, Kidman does an okay job here. It's certainly not her best, but it's not her worst either. I'm not a huge Kidman fan. She did an all right job. But at the end of the day, I felt like this was little more than a Lifetime movie, except with A and B list actors. The mystery element's decent, and it does hold suspense for a while, but as it unwinds, it gets more and more ridiculous and long-winded, and a lot still gets left unexplained at the end. There's basically no ending, because we never find out a lot of what even happened with the kids.
Yeah.
The character development in that regard is virtually non-existent. But my favorite part of the movie was when Nicole Kidman goes to see this woman for help, and literally the lady says, well, kids go missing all the time in this town. Kidman says, all right, and then leaves.
Whatever.
What just happened?
Okay.
Well,
That
the
was
title
great.
of the movie is Strangerland.
That was really weird.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Are your kids not missing, or?
You know what? That is kind of an iOrigins moment. You've
It
got to
is.
get her to the doctor right now, but you don't really have to. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You got time, but if you don't get here within 24 hours, everyone's dead. Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting some mixed
Was like iOrigins.
mixed signals here.
So, through it all, this is not a good movie, but, it's not the worst I've seen. I'm with Justin. It's a C-.
All
Joe?
right. Well, I can't
Never mind, there's like 50 missing kids.
I can't really sum it up better than you guys did. I mean, I guess I liked it a little more. I thought there was some good atmosphere. I liked some of the shots. I thought the acting was all right, and I thought the mystery was okay too. I thought Joseph Fiennes did a pretty good job in the movie. I thought his acting was
He
good.
probably gave the best performance.
I actually
Probably.
it was good to see him do something good again. I feel like it's been a while. But really, I mean, other than that, I just thought most of it was okay. My problem was I feel like it was just too slow at points. And when it wasn't slow, it was just being ridiculous. But I feel like it's somewhere between. I can respect some things about it legitimately, and some of it's kind of guilty pleasure because of scenes like that. So for me, it's more like a C+.
Okay. She has a lot of sex, too, to get over her missing kids.
Well,
Yeah, there was a lot of weird moments with that.
That was like a little odd, too.
to be fair, I have seen it in other movies, and I feel like there's worse ways to get over things.
There is.
There are worse ways, but
But I mean, they just went missing. Go look for them.
No, she doesn't care that much.
Obviously.
So they kind of sort of sabotages some of it. But
yeah,
it was an interesting movie. I'll say that.
I agree that it starts out interesting, and I think there's some good mysterious elements to it.
Definitely.
It just doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it doesn't. Like, it doesn't wrap up.
And you kind of realize that, like, 40 minutes in, that it's not really going to give you anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I remember thinking, like, as it was just, like, these long shots of the landscape and just, like, this kid walking for, like, the whole credit stakes. And I'm just thinking, it's going to be one of those movies. Mm-hmm. Just doesn't really quite care where you're going to take it.
And you know what? I would have been okay with an anticlimax if it wasn't for the fact that we get closer to figuring out what happened, and then we don't get anything.
I mean, I want to say it was open-ended, but it doesn't really even give you any really clear possibility.
No, it really doesn't.
We get an implication of something that may have happened, but that's about it.
Yeah. All right, well, yet another one. We seem to do these missing kids movies every, like, few months anymore.
That's a hot topic, I guess.
They're really producing a lot of them lately.
Is it because of Prisoners?
Probably.
Oh, actually, maybe it is.
That was a pretty big hit.
Yeah. All right, well, inspired by Jem and the Holograms, our top 5 this week is an interesting one. It's 80s and 90s cartoons that we would like to see as movies. Now, the reason that we kind of are focusing on these 2 decades specifically is this is when we grew up. You know, for me, Jem and the Holograms was hitting right when I was probably in the age demo they're going for now with the movie. And you gentlemen are a bit younger, so for you, the 90s was really where it was hitting. So we sort of laid a couple ground rules. There couldn't already be a movie like we've already seen the Smurfs and Alvin and the Chipmunks and, a ton of movies like that. The Rugrats had a movie. And then we also are going to say whether or not we think it should be a live-action film or an animated film. I'm going to start this one with an honorable mention, and that is a live-action version of The Critic.
Oh, yeah.
This is a great John Lovett show. It only ran, I believe, 2 seasons on Fox Primetime, and basically just a curmudgeonly critic that hates everything. And, Lovett is still around, kicking with a lot of, bit parts in TV shows and movies. And he has expressed interest in bringing The Critic back as a TV series. I would love to see it as a live-action movie. Number 5 is one that you guys may not be familiar with, and that's Kid Video. This was, I believe it was NBC in the mid to late 80s, and it was right sort of when MTV was blowing up, and video gaming was blowing up, and this kid and his friends sort of utilized technology to, solve crimes and stuff like that. I think as a live-action movie today, it would sort of be the Jem and the Holograms, like, by a thread this is related, because obviously the technology has improved significantly, but I think it would be cool to sort of incorporate that, especially with what they can do today with CGI and stuff. Number 4 is Bobby's World. This is the Howie Mandel show from the early 90s where he plays a little kid. I think this would be great as an animated movie. Here's another one. Howie Mandel has expressed interest in wanting to somehow revive this character. The whole series just came out recently on DVD, so, there's a small fan base, I think, for that. Number 3 for me can go in so many directions. That's Animaniacs.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you have to do this as an animated feature. It would be very hard to do it live action. But, you could throw in a lot of cameos from some of the famous other shorts in the program, like, Chicken Boo and the Good Feathers and all that. But I think expanding their world even more is always fun. Number 2 is Muppet Babies. Obviously, Muppets are having a huge resurgence right now. The new TV show, the recent movies, and I think an animated film. You remember the Muppet Babies, Joe?
Some people actually say that Muppet Babies was better than Muppets in general.
Honestly, well, now, of course, I
was
grew
close
up with it, and I would agree.
Okay.
And the only reason it's not widely available is because they used so many clips of things. Mm-hmm. They would open a door and there'd be the, stormtroopers or whatever. They would have to get so many clearances. But the show still is very loved. It has a great fan base. And you're right, a lot of people really hold it very high,
for Muppets,
on par or even above the live action show. So I was a huge Muppet Babies fan, so I would love to see that. All right, Joe, let's go to you with the top 5. Many choices.
Many choices. Actually, it was a kind of a tough list, to be honest. I would actually give a couple honorable mentions. First one is this one show called Cops. And that's
I remember that.
C.OPS. It's a show that nobody really knows about, but they're super cops, and I think it'd be fun to see them. Another one would be He-Man.
Okay.
And the reason why he's not
Had a
actually
movie.
in my top...
Well, that's why he's honorable mention.
It's an honorable mention, but I'd like to see them do it again. So, honorable mention.
And it was animated before, or it was live action?
It was Masters of the Universe's live action.
Okay, and so you would like to see it as live action again?
Yes,
Okay.
but done right. But
Okay, fair enough.
doesn't officially make the list, unfortunately, for me. Now, number 5 would be Sailor Moon. Now, I know that there is kind of not a very good history of anime adaptations in the U.S., but because Sailor Moon's so big and she's just kind of, much like Dragon Ball Z, her series is pretty much almost assimilated with a lot of people in American culture, I think it could be possible to do her right. She's not too difficult to do, but who knows? I think that would be something really interesting to see. Next one would be Thundercats. I mean, this is one people have been wanting for a long time. I just think, it needs to happen. It's kind of like, but
I'm surprised there hasn't been one yet.
They tried to do a gritty reboot.
They tried, but unfortunately it didn't pick up well. Although it started off really good, and I'd actually like them to see them follow up with the reboot show they did and keep it animated.
Okay.
Because I really liked that style and I thought it fit well. My number 3, though, there was this great show that I loved. I don't know if you watched it, Justin.
Go on.
But it was Beast Wars. Now, Beast Wars was a spin-off of Transformers, and it was a really good show.
Oh, yeah,
it was
awesome.
Excellent show. But the way the storyline resolves is not very good, and it kind of turned into the spin-off show that was Beast Machines, which is horrible. So I would like them to actually continue that and give it a spin-off as a live-action show.
Okay.
Or in this case, I guess it would be CGI animated.
Yeah, probably.
Kind of like a blend, but I think that could be really,
like a
really
Garfield.
cool. Yeah,
They did
and I
that.
feel like with Transformers as popular as now, if somebody other than Michael Bay got their hands on it, it would have a pretty good return. Maybe not quite as big for purists, but
Right.
it has a pretty big fan base. Number 2 is one that I think is really underrated, but I think could really do well as kind of a dark, gritty live-action show, and that would be Cyber 6. If you guys are familiar
I
with
don't
that.
know it.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It had like one season. It's based on a Brazilian comic book, and it just follows this woman who was kind of the product of this experimentation. It's kind of along the lines of like Nikita or something. But, her creator was this evil Nazi scientist guy, and she has to go and fight mutants and zombies and stuff in the night. It was a pretty cool show, and it's really underrated, and I think that it could do well as a live-action series.
Okay. Justin, how about you? 5 through 2.
Okay, well, I want to kick mine off with an honorable mention as well. I ordinarily would do Animaniacs, but they had a made-for-TV movie, so I'm not entirely sure if that counts.
I don't count it.
I
I think a
wouldn't.
lot of these cartoons have had feature length,
Yeah.
either on Cartoon Network or whatever.
I'd say you could put it on the list.
But mine is of that same ilk, and that would be Hysteria. Super underrated show. Does not get nearly enough love. I hope someday it'll get on DVD because it was absolutely hysterical as a kid. I hope it.
Big Fat Baby.
Big Fat Baby. I mean, the list of memorable characters goes on, and I think just even if it's a series of vignettes as a 90-minute movie will be great.
Yeah.
Number 5, Outlaw Star. Now this is one that I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the overall anime because it came out while they were still doing the manga, which meant they were throwing a lot of things in and hoping they worked. For example, the core villains of like the first 3 episodes randomly go away. We have them deal with a bunch of random villains over the course of a couple 10 or 20 episodes, and then the main baddies come back for basically no reason. So there's a lot of very strange resolution. They were trying to do a sequel series to wrap things up, but they never got it. But what I love about this show was the characters are a lot of fun, and they were the main reason I kept wanting to come back and see where it was heading next. And I think with the cult following of Firefly and things like that, I think there's definitely a fan base for it, and I think it'd be interesting to see it get a live action treatment. My number 4, Dexter's Laboratory.
I thought about that on mine, for sure.
Yeah, this one
Agreed.
I went back and forth on placement because I think Dexter's annoying, but I think the antics that happen in the show are amazing, and I feel like if they can throw together a coherent story to bring it to life, more power to them because I think it should happen. My number 3, Johnny Bravo. Now, this is one I could definitely see without question getting the live-action treatment. I mean, when you think about how many actors in Hollywood are like shredded beyond shredded, the list of people who could bring the goofy man horror to life is limitless.
One of your favorites, Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum. I was even thinking Dwayne The Rock Johnson or John Cena to some extent.
Yeah, The Rock makes sense.
just sort of a no-nonsense story to truly bring that same mischievous chaos to life. And my number 2, Tiny Toon Adventures. This is one I don't think nearly gets enough love because they came after Looney Tunes, and we all know that they were basically legends. So, can they keep up with the old series? I think so. And I think bringing them back to life and giving them a second wind would really make a big difference.
It's interesting that both of our number 2s are based on children or young people of already established. I had the Muppet Babies, Tiny Toon Adventures. That was the thing to do.
But it worked.
Flintstone Kids, the new Archies.
It works better for those types of cartoons.
Pup named Scooby-Doo.
But it was like a next generation of Star Trek. They found ways to differentiate from the originals.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was a huge Tiny Toon Adventures fan. That whole hour, Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, very good. All right, well, my number 1 is actually a cartoon that did have 2 TV movies, but never quite a theatrical feature and never live action either, and that is Daria.
Oh yeah.
Now, I think that the fan base that they are attempting to capture with Jem and the Holograms, that's who needs a Daria movie. The people that love Pitch Perfect, the people who are sort of disillusioned, or maybe the comic book movies are too violent for them. Daria is fantastic as a series. If you've never seen it, go ahead and do it. I think they could either do a live action version set in the same time period, or advance the story. Have it, be Daria at 25 or in college or whatever. I think that would be really cool. She's just a fantastic character. Joe, how about for you?
Well, mine's an original one. Now, this is a great show from the 90s. Everybody pretty much agrees that just sort of stopped. I mean, it ended well, I guess, but it just needs to have more accompanied with it, I think. At least an adaptation, which I think should be animated in the original 2D style, and that would be Gargoyles. I mean,
of course.
Hands down.
You do love Gargoyles.
And I'm not wrong. I mean, like, literally, this was kind of like Disney's answer to Batman the Animated Series. And it's a fantastic show. It was really well written. It was dark. It was gritty. And it was good. And it was basically like a Next Gen sequel because the cast was all the Next Gen from Star Trek anyway. But no, it's a really good show. And, I mean, it did wrap up fine. But the fact that there's been like no spin-offs or reboots or anything since then really surprises me. And I feel like there is enough of a following that newer fans need to be introduced to the series. And I think an animated show would be good.
Awesome. All right, Justin, how about for you?
Well, my number 1 is also Gargoyles. I mean,
this completely bypassed me. I'm too old for Gargoyles, I guess.
You're like right at the line.
I've never seen it.
94.
Yeah, I mean, I was like a senior in high school.
Yeah, and since it was like pretty brutal for a 90s cartoon.
Yeah, it was dark, but I mean,
like the Gargoyles accidentally shoots like the female character in like one of the first episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, it gets pretty gritty.
But I mean, those are the 2 magic words there that scream money to Hollywood nowadays: dark and gritty. And I think Gargoyles is just the right kind of. It's dark, it's intense, but it's also a lot of fun. And I think that's the one thing that is keeping them from doing more with it, but also they should keep doing more with it.
Well, it's Disney. I mean, it's kind of like, honestly, one of the best things they've ever done. And it was a big risk, too, because when you think of Disney, you don't typically think...
Well, and the Disney afternoon at that point was Goof Troop and Darkwing and
Gargoyles.
And Gargoyles.
So it was really a big risk for them, but it proved early on that they could do things. And I think, Disney's obviously taking more risks in different projects you wouldn't necessarily associate with Disney now, and they pretty much own everything now. So I think this is kind of a precursor to that. So they have the money, they have the time. There is a fandom for it.
Oh, definitely.
Give them a movie. I'd see it.
I'd even say go live action, because I think with the level of CGI that we can devote to it, it'll look amazing.
It could look amazing.
It could go Last Witch Hunter too, but...
But to be fair, I want to press for more traditional, like, hand-drawn 2D stuff, because I don't want that to ever completely go away, because it pretty much has gone away. And, I mean,
more or less,
if anybody has the money to do it,
Go right to Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
Owned by Disney.
Get them to do it. Why
Or
not?
distributed by Disney, at least.
Yeah, some are distributed.
Yeah.
Probably they'll end up owning it eventually.
Give it time.
Don't
All right,
worry.
well, good, interesting list.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have our double feature of older films now, and first up is my pick for this month's old classic, and that is Winter's Bone. Somewhere in the Ozarks is the Dolly family. 17-year-old Ree, played by Jennifer Lawrence, heads up the family as she cares for her mentally ill mother, 12-year-old brother, and 6-year-old sister. She teaches them basic survival skills while making sure they're fed and attending school. Patriarch Jessup has been gone a long time and has unknown whereabouts. But the local sheriff, played by Garrett Dillahunt, shows up to tell Ree that if her dad doesn't show up for his court date, they'll lose the house, as he put it up as part of his bond for a methamphetamine charge. So Ree sets out to find her father, traveling into a world of backwoods drug use and violence, and John Hawkes co-stars as Ree's uncle in an Oscar-nominated role. The film also got 3 other nominations, including Adapted Screenplay and Picture, and a leading actress nod for Lawrence, essentially putting her on the map in this pre-Hunger Games role. Now, I ran this movie actually because of a comment that Joe had made maybe about a month ago on the show about, we were talking about Jennifer Lawrence, I guess, with the whole movie coming out, Joy, with her and Bradley Cooper yet again, and Justin said he was kind of getting sick of that pairing, and Joe sort of said, well, Jennifer Lawrence, to me, just isn't the greatest actress out there anyway. So I wanted to introduce Joe to this movie from, her earlier days. She was 20 in this movie, playing a 17-year-old. I think all of the accolades this movie got are deserved. This was one of those Best Picture nominees that people are like, what movie was that? When it gets announced. Amore is another one of those where it's like, you have all these movies.
Where'd this come from?
Birdman, Whiplash, Winter's Bone. Like, what? I don't know what that is. But this movie appeared on more than a dozen top 5 lists from 2010, including Newsweek, Roger Ebert himself. But Lawrence gives a performance far beyond her years here. But the entire cast, including the extras, add to the authenticity of this horrifying other world. The story is a bit of a slow build, I'll admit, but once you realize the desperation of this girl who honestly never did anything to anybody, she was just born into this poverty life, seemingly hopeless, the story is positively gripping. It's a fantastic crime thriller, a family drama, and there isn't a whole lot of humor to be found, but in Ree's situation there wouldn't be. I just think this is a great, emotional, satisfying piece of cinema, and it gets an A. Justin?
Well, this is essentially where Lawrence's career took off. Sorry, Beaver.
God, that movie.
And it's still every bit as powerful on the second go-around. It's kind of a neo-noir that firmly beds its overall mystery genre into this sort of backwoods setting and lets it play out in that regard, really letting it complement the scenery and vice versa. Not so much dependent on intensity, given the slow burn, but raw human emotion, which compensates for the somewhat short running time and slightly, ever so slightly, anticlimactic ending. But really, if you can forgive those, there's still a fantastic performance, a great storyline, and more than a handful of twists and turns to make it all the whole trip worth it. I leave Winter's Bone with an A-.
And there are a few very intense scenes, though.
Oh, no question.
All right, well, Joe, what did you think of Winter's Bone?
That was the worst movie I'd ever seen.
I don't believe you.
No, well, I don't hate Jennifer Lawrence. I don't think I ever
you didn't say that you hated her, but
I mean,
I mean, she's pretty much my favorite actress at this point in time.
I know,
and I know that she's not quite on that level for you.
I mean, no, you do like her, and that's fine. I mean, I think I've always thought she was a good actress, but she has been hailed as the second coming.
Yes.
Which she is not, and I'm sorry. I don't think she's quite at that level. But people always said to me, Winter's Bone, and I do think that this movie's shot well. I think it's got some good editing, some good cinematography. It does build that sort of that rural neo noir is a good example, Justin. I think that was good, and I tend to like those. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit slow. There's some good performances. There's some really intense moments, which I thought were what kept the movie up from the points when it drags. Because I think it really does drag at points, to be honest. But the story is fairly engaging, and I think Jennifer Lawrence does give the best performance I've ever seen of her, which is a very good performance.
Okay.
Also not the second coming, But she is very good, and it is pure human. And I kind of wish that we got to see her in more roles like that. And I think I'll have a little caveat here. The first exposure I ever had to her was the X-Men movie, First Class.
Oh, okay.
Where she was playing Mystique.
Right.
And I liked the original Mystique a lot. And in the first movie, I don't think she quite had a grasp of that character.
Okay.
So it wasn't the best.
So a hard sell for you from the start.
I mean, hard sell. It's not like I was like, bashing. Like, she destroyed that interpretation of the character. But I had an attachment to the older one. Plus, I'm a comic book fan. So it's always kind of hard to get past that first one. I think she's done well. This is probably the best performance, though. I think the best movie I've seen her in was probably Silver Linings.
Yeah.
Hands down.
I agree.
I just think I wish she had like the same amount of chemistry with Cooper, and I think that's what I miss is the interplay. I think she's definitely better with other people, and here she has that, but I feel like it's almost more focused on her.
It is.
Since she sort of carries the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the performances are good. I think it's very good. I just, when it drags, it was just a bit slow for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with Justin. I leave it with an A-.
Okay. Yeah, that is interesting you say that, because I guess The Hunger Games really is sort of more of a solo piece as well, because they pair her with PETA, they pair her with Gale, but like most of the movie she's by herself a lot.
And I think she's good when she does that, but I also think she's better when she has some play off of. And the Hunger Games movies, they're fine, but those are typically what she's known for, and I just don't think she's like super amazing in those movies. Maybe it's because of the character, I don't know, but she does a good job. But I don't know. I like the fact she's versatile.
Oh yeah.
She really is.
I just think she should be in more realistic dramas like these, where she can really showcase the best that she has. And I feel like these big franchises, she's a little more.
Wear you down.
Yeah, they restrains her more, but that's not the case for everybody. Some people go all out, like Fassbender, like Fantastic Magneto, and I guess that maybe she's just a little more unsure of herself in that first movie. The second X-Men movie with Days of Future Past. With her,
I thought she was good.
She was much better in that.
Yeah,
but I think that she's found a way to fit into these other roles. But as a good starting one, this was very good.
All right, good. Well, I'm glad you liked it. This was the third time for me.
Oh, good.
And I do agree that it has a slow build. Mm-hmm. But I think once we get into that mystery element of like, where is the father? Is she going to find him? Mm-hmm. How is she going to interact with these people? I don't think much in the middle or the end of the movie is that slow. You found the whole thing sort of tedious from time to time?
Yeah, a little bit, but I do wish we had kind of been introduced to some elements sooner, because I just kind of kept thinking to myself, instead of wondering what's going on, I'm just like, what's going on?
Right.
So just...
Well, it depends on how much it grabs you.
And I guess it just took a little while to grab me. I mean, once her uncle started coming more involved, I thought things got more interesting.
And how about him? We know him from the sessions where he's, confined the whole movie to his bed.
His performance is the best in the movie because it's the sessions guy.
It's so crazy.
And I'm just like, it's always great when you can see. It's kind of like Gyllenhaal, where he can just like transform and become a completely different person. I mean, that's ultimate acting right there. And this guy. Wow.
Well, that's what's so funny. I had seen this movie twice. I had seen the Sessions twice, and it wasn't until this third viewing that I was like, wait, that guy's name is John Hawkes. So was the Sessions guy, but that's not the same. And it is.
I mean, he's
just a truly incredible character actor.
Crazy.
He's one of the greatest actors of our time. It's just hands down because I mean, he is. I'm sorry,
no, he does a great job.
Because between those two, I mean, complete ends of the spectrum here. Mm-hmm. I mean, man.
All right, well, our final film is the Oscar A to Z. It is a Kubrick movie called Barry Lyndon. It was a 1975 film nominated for 7 awards, not won 4 of those, all in the artistic department. Art direction, cinematography, costume design, and score. And then the other ones, it was nominated for director, picture, and adapted screenplay. Justin?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What, that it would win those ones?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, agree. That would make sense. that would make sense, because I was wondering what it was nominated for, and then I'm thinking, that all makes sense.
There you go.
Ryan O'Neal plays Redmond Barry, a farm boy in love, and challenges a British captain for her hand. Although victorious, Barry has to flee back to Dublin until he ends up robbed and left with no choice but to join the British Army in the 7 Years' War.
Robbed by the most polite highwayman ever.
Quite possibly, resulting in his desertion, becoming a spy, and eventually marrying into nobility. This is kind of the Kubrick movie that no one really talks about. which is strange given how well it fits into his overall body of work. Now I'll confess it's not always the most engaging period piece, but similar to this year's Far From the Madding Crowd, the story keeps moving, and while the characters aren't always the most likable, there remains a lingering interest to see how the events are going to unfold. Be it with his life on the battlefield, be it as a gambler, watching his overall downward spiral, and frankly so on. And this pairs really well with Kubrick's constant attention to detail with his directing style, which is maddening for his cast and crew, but great for the viewer, that makes the film look gorgeous and carries its own vibe that honestly kept me invested throughout the incredibly long running time. This is an easy one to feel the length, and you can definitely see why there's an intermission about midway through this movie. But I think it's a definitely worthy piece into his overall filmography, with a couple decent performances. I just wish it was slightly more engaging and on par with some of his better work. I leave with a B+.
Joe?
Well, that sounds about right, Justin. Sounds about right. I mean, this is the Kubrick movie that nobody talks about, and I can kind of understand
I never even heard of it.
Exactly. That's fine. Really, of all the Kubrick movies, it's one of the ones you don't necessarily need to hear much about. I mean, when it comes to the cinematography, it's beautiful. I mean, you definitely know his way around the camera. It's Kubrick. He has his classical piece setting the scene for everything. And I do like the fact that the movie goes about these things with this narrator who kind of makes you feel like you're hearing an old folks tale, but it kind of keeps the story moving along, and they have a fairly likable main character, and there's enough going on that it doesn't feel too episodic when it moves to the next stage, but it's also really, really long, and that's something you can definitely feel, and it isn't the most engaging story, and maybe it's because I've seen a lot of Kubrick's other films, and you see some of the tricks in terms of cinematography and in the music and the subject matter, just how ahead of his time he was. Is pretty much showcased in almost all of his other films. This one, there's definitely some of that, but it feels kind of like, to draw a comparison, David Lynch doing Elephant Man. It's that director going a little more mainstream. It's still good, but it doesn't really have their...
It's different.
It doesn't have their particular elements that they're known for. Mm. That's Kubrick for this. So it's good, certainly, but I've seen Kubrick do much, much better. I'm with Justin. I leave it with a B+.
Okay. Well, this is my first of the Kubrick films.
Interesting.
Yikes. I mean, look, you guys both said it. It's unbelievably long.
3.
It's a little over 3 hours. It is interesting, but I didn't find it interesting for the first half hour. The last half of the movie is a bit uneven. I think instead of having 2 hour-and-a-half movies, which this could have been, because it's obviously separated in 2 parts, we have this big bloated epic, and I think if you wanted to tell both stories in the same movie, you gotta trim it up. That narrator I liked, but he could have basically explained the first 20-25 minutes of the movie in about a minute and a half, and then just got right into the action. Once they get into battle, I was like, all right, cool.
I will admit,
here we are.
It does start to get really good there. That's true.
Yeah. But shots were lingered on far too long. Conversations moved too slowly. He's like the anti-Sorkin with this movie. But there's definitely some decent performances. I think there's a bit of overacting as well. The kid was really annoying.
Yeah.
Lady Lyndon is
overkill.
Yikes. The one scene where she starts crying and contemplates taking her life, that was just way over the top. But all the artistic stuff obviously is good. It's clear why it won, art direction and costumes and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I leave Barry Lyndon with a B-.
Oh. Well, that's kind of understandable.
For leading your review with a yikes, I was expecting C+.
Well, because it's Stanley Kubrick, the greatest director of all time, and for my first exposure to him, yikes.
Hashtag.
Okay. Come on.
I'll admit it was not the best choice for you coming out.
Yeah.
Here.
No,
and I knew, this wasn't one of Joe's favorites from him.
Probably might be my least favorite.
Is that right? Well, if your least favorite from a given director is a B+, that's really good.
Yeah,
I was going to say.
No, and that's what I'm saying. That speaks to, people that love Kubrick.
I mean,
So for me, when it's a 3-hour war story...
Period piece.
...moves super slowly, come on.
No,
That's fair.
I wasn't sure how you were going to feel about it, but I mean, you can rest assured that being the one Kubrick movie you never heard of. That,
I know, really.
I mean, like you could pretty much predict all my grades for his movies.
Most of
things
them
are
are
coming.
the A's and A plus range, I would think.
Probably.
Yeah,
You know,
more or
so
less.
if this one's a hiccup, it's a pretty good hiccup, I think.
All right, well that's fair.
Oh yeah, it's interesting that we both had. That all three of us had an interesting outlook on the narrator. When they first introduced the narrator, I was getting Age of Innocence flashbacks, where it's going to be narrator literally divulges every single piece of information.
That was bad, yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah, that was overkill.
That was the reason that one got a B- for me. But fortunately, it's fairly.
Way too high for that train wreck of a movie.
Generous, my friend. Generous.
But fortunately, this one was really evenly spaced throughout the movie, and I felt like when they did include the narrator, we got interesting bits of information.
I agree. I just think we could have utilized him to also sort of advance the story a little bit for scenes that don't need to be there.
Yeah.
There's this movie doesn't need to be over 3 hours. It's ridiculous.
Welcome to Kubrick.
Yes, I know.
To be fair, though, for Kubrick, even this is pushing it a little bit. To be fair.
Yeah, not all of them are 3 hours, right?
Oh, you're going to love 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I feel like it's 3 hours.
I feel like that's more engaging than this is, though.
For you?
For me.
hard to say.
Maybe like,
let's say for me.
maybe like the last 45 minutes.
Oh, is that right?
I was going to say, there's...
like I told you, the first Space Odyssey, just spoiler here, the opening credits is like, what, 10 minutes of just classical music on a blank screen? And then
I was going to
and
say...
then it just slowly moves into the image. Like
There's also like one scene near the end, which is like a 15-minute spiel of more or less flashy lights and a profile shot.
The ending will be like... Actually, I don't know how Dan will feel about Space Odyssey. I don't know. But you know what?
You're not really selling it to me, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's definitely got a more epic scope than this movie.
All right, well, I like that.
So that's something.
Yeah.
Better music.
Yeah, I mean, the score of this was like all right, but it was a little much.
I'll tell you this much. You'll probably like
drumming
Space...
you get it. You're in Revolutionary War time.
You'll probably like Space Odyssey more because Barry Lyndon's a good character.
Mm-hmm.
But HAL 9000.
You can't beat him.
Yeah.
Best character. So
People do care for him.
they do.
Yeah.
Even though he wants to kill them.
Well, we find that a lot.
It's true.
In cinema. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. Joe posts our Star Trek reviews weekly on the Boldly Going series of episodes, and you finally started the Planet of the Apes long trek to. I don't know. You're going to do all of this stuff.
I'll be honest. I might just like do a vlog of like
Is that right?
all the other movies because I don't know if I want to like spend that much time on all of them.
on each one.
I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Up to 103 subscribers now, so the numbers keep going up.
Yeah,
So we thank you guys for that. And if you have not yet subscribed, go ahead and do that. And you can leave us comments here, of course, on the videos. And our Facebook group is Film Fanatics with an exclamation point, and the Twitter feed at Film Fanatics Pod. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next week. Bye.